Hello, everybody. Welcome along to another one of these live stream sessions. And I'm joined tonight by Astrid McGechan and Mr. Charlie Waite. So, firstly, Astrid, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Happy New Year to everybody
Yes,
who hasn't
absolutely.
watched on the 1st of January.
Of course, of course. Charlie, are you okay, sir?
Yes, I'm in good shape. Very looking forward to a good discussion about what we're going to talk about. So very, very happy to be here.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, as ever, if you are watching along out there, let us know. I can see a good number of you have already. And I'll just point out there's a good number of you already live with us on the stream. This will also be available to watch on Catch Up on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you do have to drop out or if you're watching this later, welcome if you're a repeat viewer. Jez is with us as usual in Dorset, good man. Hazel in Lincoln. Barbara, there's some stalwarts here, which we very much appreciate all of you tuning in to speak with us and to listen to us. Heather's in North Notts. David over in Germany knows all about galleries. We've got Carnoustie in Scotland, lovely. Hugh is in North Dorset. Oh, there's lots of you today, fantastic. Jane, another Dorseter. Kevin's in Liverpool. Lorraine joining us as well. And crikey, you're all jumping on board tonight. Welcome along, everybody. And we'll just do a quick bits of hello because I can see a few more jumping in. James is in Colorado. You're probably winning the most exciting place at the moment, James. Another Dorseter there, Matt. Howard and Bob is in New Hampshire. Fantastic. Well, it's great to see so many people here. Let's dive into it then, because we've got a good number of you with us on the stream already. Shay is with us in Bath. Just a little bit of housekeeping then tonight. So obviously we're joined by Charlie and Astrid, both of whom have exhibited many times in many places in their time. And what we're trying to do this evening is give you a good amount of detail about the upcoming exhibition at the Mall Galleries in London in September. We're going to talk about the whys and the whens in just a second. But I do think, although the main emphasis of tonight is about that particular exhibition, and we're going to talk about why there, we're going to talk about the joys of exhibiting generally, and some of the challenges and how we're going to be able to help you meet those. But even if you can't get to that, or you can't take part in that for some reason, I do think you will take something from tonight in terms of us talking about selecting images, curating images, how you might display images in a group, etc., etc. So there's going to be sort of two parts. We'll talk a lot about the whys and the wheres of this upcoming exhibition, and we'll also talk in good detail about how you might choose images, theme images, display images, etc. So that's kind of the roadmap for tonight, and I wanted to lay that out because this isn't a normal live stream where we just go through a location or whatever it might be. Now, without any further ado, a couple more to say hello to. Sue's there in Tunbridge. David's in freezing Reading. Pete's also frozen, but he's in Lancashire, and John is with us in Limerick. So a nice spread of people. And the first thing I would say before I actually throw to Charlie is that you do not have to necessarily be able to get to London to take part in this exhibition. Okay, there's ways we can help you with that remotely. So wherever you may be, you may well want to get involved because this will be a large affair. It'll be a fairly unique gathering of photography exhibitions in the centre of London. And let me dive into that in more detail. Let me just add things to the stage. Charlie, first up, can I just ask you maybe to elaborate a little bit on why we've put this together? Briefly, if I can, the 2nd to the 7th of September is when it will be. But if I can throw to you about why and why we've chosen this particular location as well, please.
Well, yes, most certainly can. I think it's firstly really important to examine the motivation behind wanting to exhibit. And it doesn't take me very long to realize that, and to, if I may suggest that, and I have a little sort of, I've got to do that. And the only way I can do that is to support it with a very important point, which is if we don't, our images are going to be imprisoned in an external hard drive. They will be periodically seen on a monitor. They might be sent from one person to another person, but the wider world will never see them, not in the way that they should be seen. which is, as I say, to be taken off the monitor and put into print form, where they really do express themselves in a way that they cannot be expressed or shared on a monitor. It just simply doesn't work for me. And the business of exhibiting, I think, is hugely rewarding. It's very, very enjoyable. It's quite daring. And I have another little pet phrase, which is any artistic endeavor is often accompanied by a degree of insecurity. And that is true. And we have to overcome that. We don't go around beating our breasts saying, aren't I marvelous? So it's really, really important to engage, I think, in an exhibition with now a large number of people, which is really, really exciting. The Mall Galleries, 100 yards from Trafalgar Square, probably 600 yards from Buckingham Palace, not a bad location. So I'm really excited like I don't think I've ever been before. We've had exhibitions there at the Mall Galleries in the past. They're very, very enjoyable. Lots of people come, lots of visitors, lots of friends of exhibitors. And it's a great, big, bold, daring step to get one's photographs up on a gallery wall and then share all the things that we're going to be discussing about. Share all the responses, what people are thinking, what people are saying collectively. It's a live, truly a live process, and I cannot encourage it enough. So I think that's just the start.
That's your opening gambit, and I think we should. I'll just throw to you, Astrid, because we should point out we're going to talk more about the benefits of exhibiting in a few moments. We're going to talk about, like we say, some of the logistics as well and some of the things around image choice. But Astrid, we should point out this is open to everyone watching this to take part in. There is no particular criteria outside of the outdoor theme, which I'll let you elaborate on in a moment. But there's no other criteria in terms of the images having to be taken on Light and Land tour or anything else necessarily related to that. So can you just elaborate on that, Astrid, in terms of the accessibility for people who may want to take part in this exhibition?
Yes, of course. Well, as you said, it is open to everybody. So anyone can participate. The only criterion we have is that the pictures have been taken outdoors. So landscapes, cityscapes, abstracts, architecture, whatever takes your fancy, nothing indoors, but outdoor photography is really what we're after. This is what we offer at Light and Land, but anyone can participate. So you don't have to have been on a workshop or tour with us, but all you have to have done is taken some photographs, made some photographs, as it were, and you can book your place. There is no curating from our end, so you get your space and you decide what you want to show. There is no other selection process. There's no criteria. Nobody looks for it's not a competition or anything. So anyone can just book a place, and we will provide all the help. Starting with today, really, with starting with selecting images and how to present them. And then later on, we have other options to come where we help people along so they can make this an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and I would point out, we're showing a couple of images here on the screen from the previous time Light and Land had an exhibition in this location. I actually went there just as a viewer. I wasn't in the family, so to speak, at that point, and it was really, really fascinating to see. I actually think it benefited from the fact it wasn't highly curated, in that there wasn't any forcing into a particular box or theme, and what you saw was a really interesting array of how people reacted to seeing different landscapes, how people's aesthetic vision worked, and you saw work from some of the leaders, Charlie, and so on and so forth. So if it's something you can actually get to as well and exhibit at the same time, you'll find it very rewarding from that point of view. Now, Astrid, I'm just going to come back to you for a moment, and then Charlie, I'll be back with you in a second. But Astrid, you, I believe, exhibited as part of that exhibition. Just as sort of an outline, how was that as a whole experience for you, from sort of agreeing to take part and then actually getting there on site and interactions you may have had?
Yeah, well, I did it twice, both exhibitions. One was in 2014, and then this one, the pictures here are from 2015. And whenever I see these pictures, or I watch the video, which we have, the video about the 2015 exhibition, I get terribly excited because it brings back the memories of this event. It was wonderful because it was I felt part of a great community. So the actual logistics, hanging your pictures up, taking them down later, and all that, that was a lot easier with all the help that we got at the time. So I was just a participant at the time. I wasn't with Light and Land or anything, and just going through the selection process. What am I going to show? And then actually selling some stuff and bringing people in to see my work, and having other people that I've never known before to come and stop at my work. It was just the most exciting thing. And every time I watch the video, it all comes back, and I can't wait for it to happen, because so I will obviously have my little slot as well. We'll show some pictures, and I'm really excited because it's a combination basically of our photographic endeavors. We make pictures, perhaps we print them, but do we show them? I mean, some people hang them up in their house, and it's all great, but really we want to sort of reach out. I mean, I love exhibiting and showing my stuff to other people and getting in touch with them, seeing how they react, how they interact with it, and it's just the final step of the photographic process for me. So I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait. It was fantastic both times.
And Charlie, you mentioned about the location, and I really think that is super important, because some of us may have had the chance to exhibit some things locally, maybe on a smaller scale, etc. Foot flow in wherever is often small, and it can just turn into lots of people who know you already. Here, though, we are bang in central London, and there are lots of people coming through that gallery, and lots of images get sold, which is not necessarily what it's all about, but I promise you that's a nice extra. So for you, Charlie, how much of a thrill was it to see such an array of work last time, and in terms of this time, are you obviously looking forward to that as well?
I most certainly am, yes. I think the main reason for me to be so excited about it all is that for each individual photographer, it may well be, and quite possibly will be, a first-time experience, which is really difficult to describe. And I'm going to use the word energy. There's this wonderful energy that prevails when your images are up. And that energy is as a consequence of an enormous number of people reacting to your photography. And you just simply don't receive that when you're, distanced on FaceTime or whatever it may be, and when people are looking at your images on a monitor, and you're 50 miles away or whatever it is. Here you are all together, and this energy prevails throughout the whole gallery. It truly is electrifying. And the other thing that's so lovely is that people often look at your photography in couples. 2 or 3 people, maybe more, will be standing looking at your images, and you can, quite innocently and quite happily go up and just say, I'm so glad you're here, and thank you very much for coming, and that you then might get a little reaction from them, hopefully more than a little one, and they may ask you questions about your photography, which is something that will be extremely enjoyable to respond to. So that energy is something that I don't think you get in any other setting than in a gallery. And then, of course, the other part of makes the energy so exciting is that there's lots of you, all showing different kinds of photography, which is, long live photography. And I am going to say something that's pretty important, which is that I don't know what the figures are exactly, but there are far too few galleries of exhibitions of photography in the United Kingdom. I think there's probably very, very more in the US. Most major cities in the US have galleries and exhibitions throughout the year. And here we are being able to participate in this. So I find it exciting is a really good word to use. It really, really is. And there's so many other things that come from it, which you can't actually predict. And you emerge all the better for it, really.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, just a little bit of logistics then. As I said, we've got some images here from the last time, one of the last times that we used this space. It is a large space and there's a few parts of it. Now, on the Light and Land website, lightandland.co.uk/exhibition, you will find all of this detail we're going to talk about tonight, a whole load of FAQs and a walkthrough of the spaces that are available, and this floor plan as well, which will show you in more detail the spaces that are there and where they would be within the outline of the rest of the exhibition. Now, within that, obviously there's little segments all throughout the exhibition, and those spaces are available for you to book in advance through the website. There are different shaped spaces, shall we say. Commonly they're either 2 meters by 3 meters vertically or 3 by 2 horizontally. Now that does vary and there are slight modifications to that, but you can see all the sizes available and where they are on the planner on the Light and Land website. But what we wanted to do tonight was to also spend a bit of time talking about, let's say you make the plunge, you want to join in and you want to get involved for all the good reasons that we've explained, and there's many more as well. Then what? You've got the space. What do you do? How do you think about filling that space? What might some strategies be to find particular images? How might those images work with each other or not? What sorts of things do you have to think about for the viewers? How do you fill your space? You know, are there too many things? Are there not enough things, etc., etc.? So what we're going to do now is spend a little bit of time actually talking about how you might deal with curating your images, you know, putting images together and thinking about how they might work within a space. So we've got a number of examples and we'll try to explain to you as we go through just some thoughts on this. I think, Astrid, as well, it's worth pointing out, a little bit like when you're curating a book or putting things together for a sequence, there are some best practices perhaps, but this is also a space where you can express your own vision or your own idea about your aesthetic, right? And how you want to present your images.
Completely. It's completely open, and although there may be things or rules or ideas that many people adhere to, that doesn't necessarily mean that each person has to do that way. If I feel like putting something completely different up or having just, I don't know, 3 by 3 inch pictures and plastering, making a montage with 100,000 of them and filling my whole 2 meters with it, then so be it. Question of mounting and framing there, but it's open, and the exciting thing about such an exhibition where we will have so many different exhibitors is to see how everybody goes about these things. And there are no hard and fast rules, I believe. I've seen anything from floor to ceiling basically filled up, so you don't see wall space in between, up to just having one small picture in the middle, and anything goes. So we'll see examples, and we'll talk through them obviously in a minute. And but it's an opportunity to express your own way of looking at things. And also I just wanted to say that many people may not be in a position to mount an exhibition on their own, hire a whole gallery, fill it with, you know, however small the room is. If you have like 20 meters wall space, that's a lot. And so this exhibition will give you a chance to exhibit, be part of a big exhibition, because the wall spaces are smaller, and it's a point of just booking your space and then making use of all the help that there will be. And you don't have to worry about a lot of the admin stuff. This will all be taken care of. So it'll be much easier to actually get a foot on the sort of exhibition ladder, as it were.
Yeah, and it's a hassle-free way, isn't it?
Doing on your own, or even just with a friend or so.
And if I could just add, just very briefly, sorry, Sam, that when you're going through the selection process, you're quite vulnerable to a degree of uncertainty, because evaluating your own photography is never terribly easy. So it's quite good to do it with somebody who can be courageous and brave and say to you quite honestly, no, to be quite honest, I don't think that one works, or, oh, wow, that one really does. So do bring in some associates, some friends, whoever they may be, to give you some thoughts about your own photography before you make any final decision, because you don't want to have any regrets, oh, I wished I'd chosen this one. So just think very, very carefully about relationships and so on, which we're going to be, I think, Sam wants us to get on to shortly.
No, that's okay. There's been a couple of questions, and thank you for putting your questions on, because we wanted to encourage them, partly because we just want to make sure everyone understands the concept. And then if you have any questions about the actual image curating as well, we can get to. Tom is asking, yes, so is the concept we purchase a space to populate with our own images? Yes, that is exactly the concept, Tom. So there are multiple spaces available at different prices, and then within those spaces you can sell your work, again, at prices to be chosen by yourself. We're happy to advise on that. And the hope is, obviously, just purely from a financial, which I would actually argue is a very small part of this in terms of what you can get as a benefit and reward from this, is more to do with seeing your work and all the other things we talked about. But yes, you buy the space and you can fill that with whatever you wish to, and you can sell that as and what you wish to, and hopefully, obviously, you can cover those costs in that way. The very obvious thing to say is this is a gallery in central London, so that needs to be, logistically possible, which is how coming together as a group, a larger group, makes it viable for everyone to be involved and everyone to have the possibility to exhibit their work in that sort of way. If there are any other questions like that about logistics, do let us know, and we'll jump into the images, because in this part of the chat tonight, I wanted to just ask Astrid and Charlie, and I've got a couple of things I'm going to try and make sense of myself whilst hosting at the same time, so that should be fun, about why we choose certain images together. So Charlie, and then I'll keep my eye on the questions. Charlie, you've got two images here. Obviously, we've presented them in sort of a vertical fashion, but if I just ask a little more broadly, where do you start? You've got the space. How would you start by thinking about types of images or themes that you may well then want to fill that space with?
Well, when you're, how can I put this? If you're in a clothes shop, be you a male or female, you decide, I think, where there will be a nice series of relationships between your jacket and your trousers or your dress or whatever it is, or blouse. And although that may seem sort of rather fundamental and basic, it actually applies in the same way that interior design does to what images work with what images. And I think if you your first port of call is to look at a collection of your work, find out which ones you would really like to exhibit. But then the most important thing is to find out whether they work with each other. And I worked with a most wonderful woman called Lynn Tate many, many years ago. And she called an image had a companion piece to basically go with another one. And that may seem very straightforward. Well, if the colors are the same, that'll do. That's not always the case. And that's, I think, where you need to really look at it very, very carefully. You need to look at relationships of geometric relationships, color relationships, mood relationships, mood and atmosphere, and all sorts of things that trigger off basically the decision-making process, which is really, really important. Now, I got to know recently a rather distinguished, incredibly distinguished man who is well qualified to provide the answer to this. And I said, how long do you think it takes for somebody to make a favorable or indeed an unfavorable response to a photograph? And he said probably no more than 2 or 3 seconds. And it is terribly important that the images that you put up, you hope that people will find rewarding, enjoyable, stimulating, all of those sort of words. So it is not, it is not an easy process, but it's an incredibly important process that's very much part of the creative, as Astrid was saying, the creative evolution of your photography. It's very much part of it. And to dismiss exhibiting for whatever reason, oh, I never exhibit. And I know a number of incredibly distinguished photographers who actually work with Light and Land, with marvelous talent, who don't exhibit, and they have their reasons. But I personally feel it's a terrifically exciting process, but requires a lot of attention. So that's what I would say with these two. You may say, well, as I did, they do seem an obvious pair. They both happen to be in Andalusia, and there is yellow, yes, that helps, I suppose. But who knows? It remains to be seen if I do put these up. So Astrid, you'll probably have, and Sam, indeed, you'll add to this, because we have to use a similar criteria behind our choice, don't we?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to just jump on this occasion to ask a couple of the questions as well. I'm just going to flick the image because, Charlie, we're going to talk about these three, and throughout the next few slides, we've got examples of 3s, of 6s, of 1s, of 9s, and we're going to try and cover a variety of things that you might think about when putting these together. Now, there's been a couple of questions, so I do just want to pop them up if we can. Tom actually was just saying, thank you for taking the risk of booking the gallery without yet selling all the space. Yes, well, yes, we are taking a big risk helping you all with that, and that's what facilitates it to be possible for everyone. But to do that, obviously, we would encourage everyone to get involved. That's what makes the whole thing work. Barry has asked what I think is and there's a couple before that which I will come back to, which is a sensible question, Barry. I don't think there's a black and white answer, but I am going to throw this to Astrid. What would be a typical size print to display in a 2 meter by 3 meter space, and how many? Now, I know we've alluded to the fact that it can be done in lots of ways, but do you have any bits there for Barry that you want to share?
Well, we're going to, this will become apparent, Barry, when we go through these slides. But you can already see the first lot, we had 2 images here, 3. There'll be others where we have 9 or just a single one. And that depends on that. So if you have 9 pictures or 16 or whatever, they'll obviously be a lot smaller. But there may be images where the subject matter is best displayed in a smaller print. There may be subjects which we'll see later, perhaps that work really, really well if you print them big. I mean, I've just recently I've sent out a few prints to people, and they commented on what a difference it makes to see something printed and printed bigger than your monitor, as it were, and that's really the criterion. So if you have a wonderful tree or something, we'll see that later, or an architectural image. I remember in the 2018 I exhibited in a group exhibition, and I picked the wall that had a door in the middle, so it was 2 sections, as it were. And I used one side to have landscape images and the other to just show one big print. You will remember that, Charlie, because you've kindly printed it for me. It was an architectural image, and it sat perfectly well. It was well over 1 meter wide, and then it had, I think the space was about 2 meters. So it had about, I don't know, a foot either side, and it filled that space, and it needed to be seen big. So there isn't really a prescription of the sizes. It all depends on the subject matter, on how you want to present this stuff and what you want to achieve with it, perhaps who you want to reach. If you print something 1 meter wide or square, really big, that may not be bought for to fit in small walls, on people's walls. It may appeal to another sort of group of people who perhaps might want to purchase it for an office or whatever.
Yeah.
There are no hard and fast rules. I really can't say. I mean, by the end of this, you will see that we have any number of images in a slot that could be 2 meters, and
Yeah.
And you can go from, 1 to, I don't know.
You could be brave. If I could just add, it is a time to be brave. I mean, your photograph that you had that was big, and I've known others to do this. Sorry to mention the US, but when you go to some of the US galleries, there are images that are 10, 12 feet wide. I mean, they're absolutely huge, and they are very impressive. They really are. So you could be really bold, could you not, Astrid and Sam, and have one image if you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely.
No
And I
reason.
mean, I've had one that was slightly bigger than normal, not quite a meter, but I think about 60, 70 centimeters and plus mountain frame. And it was bought in a group exhibition last year. The lady walked in on the last day, said, "This is my favorite." And she just bought it straight off the wall. So there is no hard or fast rule.
No. And I think, I think that, and the reason I showed it, because it is going to become more and more apparent, Barry, and everyone watching, if you stick through the next few slides, in the next 20 minutes or so, you're going to see a variety of different ways of dealing with the space. Everything we've put together is our responses to how we might fill that space, just using some of our imagery. And I would suggest that's a drop in the ocean, our attempts to fill the space. There's all manner of ways it could be done. So what I would say is, yeah, it could be 1, it could be 18 if the thing made sense for it to be 18. But do stick with us. And I think what I'm going to say to everyone else with some of the questions, I think it makes more sense for me to just section off 5 or 10 minutes at the end where I'll quick fire bang through all the questions. Okay, otherwise we're just going to lose a little bit of momentum, and we might not be able to show you as many of the alternative options as we wish to. But keep them coming in, because I can scroll back through them, and I will. So Lorraine, I know there's one there from you, Howard, Teddy. I'll come back to all of these questions and I'll make sure I ask them at the end. So do put them in there. If we carry on just moving for now, though, as I say, we're going to show you about 7 or 8 slides where we've all put together options that could work in this. And maybe if I just spend a couple of minutes on each one, asking Astrid or Charlie or myself to explain why we think those things work together. Just briefly on this, Charlie, then, before we move on. There's a very obvious relationship in terms of subject matter here, but they're dealt with in different ways. Is there anything you'd like to say very specifically about the curation of these 3, and or potentially the order they're in, for example, and or why, other than the obvious reason why they might work nicely together?
Yes, it's quite interesting now because I'm re-evaluating them. I think they're almost, and it's important to say these things, I think individually they work really well, but I think they're too close together for me, and the relationship is a very obvious one. So in a way, I'd quite like something else to be able to, I don't know, there's 3 works really well. I think we all know that 3s are very effective. But I think sometimes personally, I think the preparation of what images one's going to use, where the position will be on your surface, on your wall, if whatever size it is, will probably preoccupy with a fairly long time. I think it's difficult, and I think it's important that it should be difficult, and I think it'll be very, very rewarding to then come to a conclusion that this goes well with this and this goes well with that and so on. So I feel that there'll be times when the relationship is obvious and times where it's quite subtle, and either way, I think the more you involve yourself with how you prepare your images for exhibition will elevate your photography no end. It really will. I think it'll enrich your whole photography process to have an exhibition of this kind. I really do. It's scary, and it's right that it should be scary. You feel lacking, if you like, in a little bit of confidence, and it's exactly right that that's how you should feel. Any creative endeavor is not just easy. It's not easy. Making a photograph isn't easy. And here's one I do like very much indeed. And I think these 2 probably are unified in color and to a degree in shape and relationships and design. But it's a fascinating process and very elevating and hugely enriching. It really is. This will be the hardest part, I think. And really enjoyable part.
And the reason we're trying to kind of score that home is the fact we're not prescribing, you must put this amount of things in here, this must be the exact theme, does make it a little harder because there's less structure for you in a way. But really, what that is a huge amount more freedom. And we hope from that, and we know from that, I should say, actually having done this before, this isn't our first rodeo, as they say. We've done this before successfully, I may add, and had a lot of great feedback, and people have sold a lot of stuff. So this isn't the first time we're coming to this. There is experience behind this. But we're hoping to see people's, visual concepts, their personality. Some people may go bold and just go one huge thing. Why not go big? Or some people may have a very creative way of putting a number of images in. Now, talking of dealing with multiple images, we're going to talk now about a couple of maybe adding a few more images in. Astrid, these are your images. And I think maybe the point I'd like to ask about here is the buyer, should we say, the buyability of things. If, let's say, that was someone's motivation, or they were worried, wanted to make sure they got that money back. We have relationships sometimes with very literal landscapes because of the times we went there, the times we saw them, the trip. I don't want to say this because there's no fact behind it, but I'm speculating here. I would imagine something a little less literal, such as these, where the color is so dominant and it's so graphically strong and beautiful, could appeal to more people essentially as an objet d'art, so to speak. Is that something that would cross your mind, Astrid, or would you wholly be driven by what you felt you wanted to exhibit as the artist at the time?
No, it does. It does cross my mind, and it's one of the factors you can consider. I remember actually a number of years ago when I worked in London. I used to, in the building where I saw the Conran shop. Well, the Conran shop was at the bottom of it, in the Michelin House in South Kensington, and they had all sorts of interesting objects in their shop, obviously. But they also had a wall on the side, and there was always there were photographs on there, but there were abstracts, and sometimes there were just particular colors, and they were selected to go with the rest of the display, with the stools and chairs and whatever else they were selling. And I often thought, oh, I've got pictures like that. I wonder if I approach them and say, look, if you need yellow, I can provide you with yellow or with blue or whatever it is, just simply shapes and colors. And I often thought that when I walked past there. So this may well be a consideration for saleability. I mean, interior designers might be looking for not necessarily what's in the picture, although that's probably one consideration, but there may be a very big consideration for, does it fit with the colors? Does it fit with whatever else I might put in? So if you're looking for really selling your work, then that's definitely a valid consideration.
Yeah.
The other 2 points on this one I thought I'd mention is this is about a particular place. Well, it's a monument in my hometown, and it's also, these are double exposures, as you can probably see. It's a technique, so you can use these criteria for your selection process. So you can have a variety of images all made with the same technique, or photographed with the same lens, or maybe all black and white or whatever. So you can look at the technical aspects. Or another consideration is looking for a place. So, for example, this is a particular place. And I mean, okay, it's in Germany, fair enough, but the same could apply to anything here, local. And if you photograph something and then show a selection of images of a particular place, this will appeal to people for whom that place means something. So, for example, if I were to show these in my hometown, where I come from, I bet it would appeal to, I mean, there's 200,000 people live in that city, and there could be people say, wow, I've never seen this monument photographed that way. And they might want to have that because they have a connection with that particular place. So place, techniques can all be criteria to use when you look at your images, when you select your images.
Yeah, and it definitely, as we'll be in central London, that might be a thing to bear in mind for people. A lot of the people walking through might be busy office workers or high rollers. You never know. They might be looking for a striking piece of something to stick up in the office or at home that's unique of London. That would not be a bad way to approach this if you already had work in that fashion and you enjoyed it. Just quickly, but we'll keep this brief because I thought we would have plenty of time tonight. That's not going to be the case, so I will keep us rolling. But the other thing we've shown on this, Astrid, and to point out again, everyone, we're just showing you some examples here to stimulate your thought processes, is taking those three out of that straight line. And there are various ways of putting three together, aren't there? Obviously you've done that just to give people an idea.
Yeah, you can jiggle them around as you see fit. I mean, there's absolutely no prescription. I'm a very kind of symmetrical type. So but there could be in any combination. It could be two on one side, one on the other, whatever. Yeah, whatever takes your fancy.
Plenty of ways to skin the cat on that.
Exactly.
Just again to remind everyone, James has asked the question as well. I'm going to get to all the questions at the end. I promise I'll hit them all. So if you do have any comments or questions, do put them in there as they come to you, and I will get to them as we come to the end. I won't spend long on this because these are a couple of my images. I wanted to just make one main point, really, is that although I've got some examples later that do match very evenly in terms of their colour and they're part of a series, a bit like Astrid's last three were there, sometimes if you are just offering two up, if you don't follow the 3 or 5 rule or the odd rule, go different, go contrasting. Yes, they're similar in terms of their aesthetic. They're both mountainscapes. They're both of this same series, which were multiple exposures, but one is obviously a much darker palette and the other one is the winter, much lighter palette. So I've gone for a very obvious A and B here, as opposed to two A's, if that makes any sense to anybody watching. And I think if you did have two bold things that worked together but weren't exactly the same tonally, maybe they were at polar opposites tonally, that might be a really cool way to deal with your space as well. All right, let's roll because I'm got my eye on the clock, team, and I'm really happy we've got so many people watching and everyone's staying on board with us. We're going to do another 15-20 minutes and that will include going through the questions. Astrid, this is a good example of perhaps following a theme but with a higher number of images. Now, could I ask here, would you be framing and displaying these individually, and or would you offer them as a set from a selling point of view?
Well, these ones, I haven't actually decided. But no,
theoretically,
yeah, I think it could work easily in one frame with 9 little cutouts, because they kind of individually they work as a set.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can have them, in 9 little frames as well, or you can have them unframed even, perhaps, or printed on, I don't know, whatever there is, aluminium or whatever other things. But anything goes. And this is perhaps, I'm not sure if this is something that people would hang on their wall. So if you're not fussed about whether people will buy your work, but you're actually just trying to kind of make a connection and tell people something about what you're doing, then that might be something you might want to choose. I mean, these are shadows of people, obviously, but that may not appeal to people who are looking for a beautiful landscape to hang up in their living room. Yeah. So particularly if there's many pictures, like here in 9, you will want them smaller. These work very well as a little small sort of small set of 9. But it could be in one frame, could be in 9 little frames. You could have gaps between, or you could actually stick them all together in one lot without any sort of wall space visible. Anything goes. I just thought I'd put that in as a
multi-image,
as as having lots of smaller images.
I think. Sorry, I'm going to throw to you in a sec, Charlie, because I've got a question about buyers, and I don't want to press the buying and selling and money thing too much, because I have alluded to this earlier. That is not necessarily, or shouldn't probably be, your goal here. It should be the process of evaluating your own work, thinking about how your own work sits, and expressing yourself as an artist, so to speak. But obviously, if you can sell some things as well, that's great. Charlie, just before I throw back to you, because this is one of Astrid's images, and we've got this up as an example of going big, as it were. But Charlie, it's important, just as a kind of final thought, maybe on the buyers side of things, to bear in mind you can't know what people are coming in expecting. They may just be on a day trip. They may just nip in for 5 minutes. Someone may come because they know someone there. And also, people react very differently, don't they, to images? They see different things in images, and they respond differently as viewers. So we can't think to presume that, I would guess.
No, I couldn't agree more. And the other thing, which is related to what you were just saying, was that a number of people have no experience of acquiring photography. The poor old photograph is still struggling to say, hey, I am an artwork. It's just extraordinary how a lot of people still feel that photography is not an artistic expression. It's a monumental one. It's a massive one, and it's getting there. And so a number of people would not think of perhaps acquiring a photograph for a certain amount of money. They might think it should be really quite cheap because it's a photograph. But things are changing. I'm really excited, and a lot of photographers worldwide are behind those changes. So I think there's a bit of education needed when people come and acquire. Some people would like to know, and sometimes ask me, how long will the images last? So I think when one exhibits, one should have, I think, some evidence of the duration, which if one does it right, then the length of time is almost becomes not necessary to inform anybody about, because the photograph will last a jolly, jolly long time. And I think there are some people who are still concerned about that. There are other people who think, what about the frame? What about the atmosphere? So, limited edition or open edition or an artist proof. There are all of these things that need to be discussed. And I'd be more than happy to talk to people about this at a later stage. So there are lots of considerations, but all very, very, if you like, educational, because it elevates all these considerations that have to be faced and confronted. They elevate your whole understanding of your photography. And I think it's really, really important to get to grips with those things.
Yeah. And this is probably a very good point for me to throw in the fact that we will be doing another live stream in February with our partners. This is the plan. We're just nailing down the dates because I'm moving around a bit, and so are they, and so's Astrid. But with our partners Siwi, who are printing framing specialists, and we in that live stream we will get into much more detail about frame types, papers, ways of framing up your images, not necessarily the obvious ways, etc. So we knew we wouldn't have chance to go into that tonight in any detail, but for anyone who's querying about the actual the substance of the prints, the frames, whatever, we will come to that in February. That'll be the next one, and I suspect, Astrid, there may well be another one after that where we kind of hoover up some of the other queries that are coming from people, logistic things we want to help people with. So just as a final thought on this one before I move on, just for time reasons, this is an example, is it not, Astrid, of kind of going big and making a single statement. But I would contest that this is probably the right image for it because of the simplicity of it as well, because it is a one tree in a one space and a big image. But there would be considerations here from a sizing, framing, hanging point of view, wouldn't there? This would be a big image.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a number of subjects that can go big, and that it doesn't necessarily need to be a display of one, like one tree or one something or other. But when it goes big, it needs a big sort of mount. It needs a proper frame that supports the actual image. But I have become a big fan of big. Because there's nothing quite like it when you have somebody walk in, see this, and just gasp and feeling they have to own that image. They have to take that with them. They have to they feel they are there with you, and having made that image, having stood next to you, basically. I mean, Charlie keeps saying that, and he may repeat that, but there's nothing quite like it. So going for one image is a perfectly good choice. I think if people have something that they might want to see printed big, that they should be bold and should try.
Yeah.
And we will have options. We will have printers, framers, as you said, who will be able to help. So you don't have to think about having to buy a printer or anything. So there will be options. Yes,
there will be solutions, and we will cover that in the February live stream with Siwi, the printing partners, and we'll talk about that in more detail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute, because I'm going to say to you that imagine you are walking around the exhibition as a viewer. Think of it like a story, or as an album, or as a symphony, whatever you might want to think of it as. Throughout that journey you're walking around, you need to hear the brass, you need to hear the strings, the music needs to swell maybe to the large image, it needs to recede to smaller, more subtle collections of things perhaps. And I think what will happen naturally is that people will approach the space differently, and you'll end up with this rhythm as people walk around the show. And that's really important. If it was all just bang, 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 which some of the highly curated shows are, we become visually deaf, quite early on into our visit there. And personally, that's what I'm most excited about seeing, is everybody's different ways of dealing with it, and obviously their subject matter as well. So in this instance, which I'm going to just very briefly say one thing about, is this is a set of things which are very obviously from one theme. They're very obviously abstract. So again, I haven't limited it from a location point of view. Anyone who's been to the beach may connect with this. They may feel it's dynamic. They may feel it's soothing. It could be dealt with either way. The only thing I really wanted to point out was, if you are considering putting images that are very similar aesthetically like this, tonally, shape and everything else, do remember to, this is a very practical thing, edit the individual images in your software, but then do look at them as the set to make sure that the 6 or the 3 or the 9 or the 12 do tonally make sense, that there isn't just one of them which is a little bit darker somewhere, where your highlights have gone a bit brighter or your shadows gone a bit too dark as well. So I'm a believer in little sets like this. I think they could be very appealing for people, but that is just the tails side of the coin. There's also the head side, and there's a million ways in between of dealing with it as well. And that's the fun of this. Now, just as we approach the end here, we've got a couple more slides, then I'm going to get to the questions. Thank you so much for everyone who's been hanging around with us and listening on. I hope you found it useful. Astrid, we did just want to say, not all the wall space is pure white. There are a couple of dark grey areas, which are all explained on the website in the sequencing area. So, and we'll get into this maybe more with the framers as well. If a background, or how important is the background maybe to the images you might then choose within it, I suppose, Astrid?
Well, it's important because it can lift the images or it can kind of bury them. So it is important. I think there's only about a handful places that have a grey wall, and I think some of them are sold, so there may not actually be any left. But when you have a space, or you picked a space with a dark background, I think it's darker than this actually. I just sort of have to sort of remind myself of it. But it will require looking into what kind of framing you might want to choose and what kind of imagery, what tones. I mean, the grey is very neutral, so it should work with most subjects, with most images that you have, but it's up to each person whether they want to go, if they have a space like that, whether they want to go for contrast and bring completely different colors into it, brighter, or if they want to actually blend in with it, go for some black and white or whatever. That's both possible, but it just needs to be kept in mind that obviously the background will have an effect. Here, the images I picked, some people watching will know where they are. that sort of set off a little bit from the background, hopefully sort of lifted out. But equally, you could go for something that blends in a lot more.
I think that, yeah, those darker areaed wall spaces, think of them as a little solo within my musical reference earlier. As people are walking around, you know, there is an interesting thing about that, is a difference, and that will grab people's eyes. But as Astrid said, some of them have sold already, and there might be a good reason for that. There's my little thing. I'm going to leave that there. All right, cool. There's a couple of things I want to just very quickly mention. Then I'm going to just ask Charlie and Astrid if you've got any final thoughts, but we will then cover the questions as well. The thing I wanted to mention as, again, a very practical thing to people, if you are not, and why would you be, because we're not always all doing this all the time, are we? If you'd like to see your images in a frame to understand how it might work and what type of frame, and again, we're going to get some more advice on this in February, there are a couple of apps I just wanted to point out to you, which you can download, and you can put your image in from your camera roll, and you can choose different frame types, and you can play about with the mount, and you can even put them in rooms to see what they might look like. One of them is called View On, VUON, as you can see here, and I'll just a couple of examples for you. And the other one is called Frame X, and both of those you can download on your iPhone or your any other phone, and you can just start to play with images, and you can change the background color. Because what I would say is, if you do decide to come on board with this, and why would you not, it was very sensible in Photoshop perhaps to set up just a space in either the white background, or if you've got the darker background, and start to play with your images, drag them around the screen to understand how they interact and how you might want to fill the space. But those two apps would help you from a framing, just as a starting point, and then the Seaweed people will have loads of options that they can fill you with there as well. And we will be back in February, date to be confirmed, and we'll let everyone know on the newsletter and here on the live stream and on socials generally. Now, let me just say one final thing. We're going to cover some questions now that people have been putting in whilst we've been on air, but there is also an FAQ section on the website, which we believe covers most things. And if there are other things that come up regularly, we'll try to add those to the FAQ section. He promises, without having any control of that himself, but I will try to help get that done. Just while I zip to the questions, Charlie, any sort of final thoughts, just as to, we've covered a lot of things obviously about why it's super important to do, but any final just roundups from you as I nip back towards the questions?
I think I would have one word behind all of this, which is gather some self-confidence and project your photography in a way that perhaps you've never done before, because the rewards are just multi-dimensional. Favorite word of mine. They really, really are. And I think be brave, and that's, those words I think are very, very appropriate. And it's a wonderful, wonderful experience, and it's to be relished, and you'll be so proud that you've done it. I find it quite unnerving, but I really do like that process. So get your work up on the walls.
Good stuff. And you can say to everyone you've also exhibited with Charlie Waite. So there you go. There's that. I've embarrassed him now, but that's something everyone can say. Right. Listen, we are tight for time, and I'm conscious of everyone giving up their time and you guys watching as well. So we're going to just do 5 minutes. I'm going to quick fire through these questions, and I'll throw them at people relevantly. Okay, let's do it. So Lorraine is asking about the marketing. Now, we may or may not be able to answer this quite in full at the moment, Lorraine, but I'll just pop it up and I'll ask Astrid. But this is being developed as we speak. So Lorraine is just wondering what extra marketing will be promoting the exhibition, apart from obviously the footfall in the general location. Astrid.
Well, we will have all sorts of marketing initiatives. So we will have our partners, we will have our own marketing, we will have social media, we will have press coverage, hopefully, and we'll spread the word as far as wide as we can. So there will be the gallery itself will have their own sort of perhaps mailing list, the listings, and we will just try and reach out. It will also depend on how many people we can gather in the exhibition. If it's going really, really well, we can maybe even hire some extra sort of promotional experts. But I believe in the photographic press, and everywhere we will hopefully be present and be able to get the message out to the world, as it were. And you mustn't forget, hopefully everybody who's bought a space will join in, and they will share on their social media websites, perhaps if they have, will share the joy and let the world know about it. So hopefully all the different marketing partners will come in. CV will hopefully bring in their ideas as well. They have a fantastic company with a huge reach, and will hopefully bring in their audience as well. So I believe that it should be fairly comprehensive.
We'll shout it from the rooftops.
We will, as best as we can.
We will, yeah. And we've done, like we say, we've done a number of these before as well, successfully, and also obviously the gallery's doing that very regularly too, and great relationships with the photographic press, especially with Charlie for many decades as well, with all of that. So yes, Wayne, there'll be a lot going on. It's difficult to detail everything here, but we take that seriously. We know that needs to happen, so that will be happening. Okay. Again, some of these I'm not sure if we can wholly answer right now, because it does depend a little bit. Howard's asking if there's going to be a printed and or an online catalogue with the exhibited images.
Yes, there will be a printed catalogue. At least that's the plan. And without sort of saying too much, I believe our partner CB may well be involved with that. But we've had this before, printed catalogue, and we also had, which I'm planning, or we were planning to do, each person will have a chance to display their artist profile in their set. So you'll have whatever your bio or your artist statement, whatever your business card. So you'll have that in your space, as well as in the catalogue.
Yeah.
Whether we can digitalize the catalogue, I can't remember, but we'll
see.
find out. But there will be a catalogue, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. We want to elevate you all. This is a democratic affair.
Last time exactly we had those of you who will have exhibited. I mean, some of you have exhibited before, I know, but it was an A4 catalogue, and there was a section about each photographer with one of the images. No, every image was, I think, shown. But anyway, the bios and all that, and contact details as well, were in the catalogue. So
yeah, okay.
And then adjacent to your work, of course, you could have a little bit of information about you, about your photograph, the title, and
absolutely, yeah. There'll be labels, of course, as well. And
yeah, okay. I'm just going to keep us rolling for the time. Teddy, will we receive advice on how much we should sell our images for? I think, Astrid, this is something we may well need to come back to in terms of on maybe the third live stream, as it were, because I think, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths here, but there isn't, we're not telling you do this in any of this, because we want it to be a fairly democratic affair, but we will probably put together some examples of previous things that haven't been priced at certain prices, and give you a scale perhaps to think about and as a starting point. Is that fair to say, Astrid?
If you say so. Okay. No, I mean, this is perhaps one of the most difficult questions, but we can talk about it, definitely. But then, of course, if I show my images, I may price them differently to perhaps Charlie's images. And the buyer who walks in, or somebody who would like to buy one, might they might walk in and take one off the wall for $5,000, or they might say, oh, 200 quid, too much. So that's very difficult to say, and I think it demands another discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll come back to that in the way that we can. Obviously, it's a tricky thing. James has asked about metal prints rather than paper. This again may be something that we cover in the February live stream in terms of print availability.
I think there's there will be a CV will put together a selection of options. And I think there has to be some sort of simplicity to it. So we can't, for obvious reasons, we can't have 100 different frame types that they offer. You're perfectly welcome to take care of your own printing and framing, so you don't have to use the options. But I think there is a couple of things that the gallery requires. I think it could be something like, now it's just clean escaped my mind, the little screws on the side of the mirror plates. So we'll have to investigate, Jim, whether the metal prints can be attached to the wall, or if they follow the specifications that we get. But we have the specifications, so we'll give exact advice what the minimum requirements are. And if you can attach them, then great.
Okay.
I'm sure it'll be possible personally.
Yeah.
There'll be very few.
I remember previously there have been images like that have been shown there. So I think the idea is that you have to attach them fixed to the wall so that people just can't walk out with them. So as long as they can be screwed on, I think that's the only criterion.
We'll have an accompanying technician to help everybody.
And I think it's
we'll have an accompanying technician.
Charlie's volunteered. No, I think it's worth pointing out that some of this smaller detail, although it's a very sensible question, don't get me wrong, but we will absolutely help people with this when it comes to that stage. At this point, it's more a thought about, do I want to engage in this, and where might I start with thinking about the images? But it's absolutely fair game. Just a couple more, because I'm thinking about the time for everyone here. Susan, should images have a title? What do we have a thought on that at this point?
If I could just add that it depends how much information you want to provide with the photograph, because a lot of people are persuaded, if you like, to perceive a photograph in a certain light or in a certain way according to the title. So some titles are to the photographer, to the artist, are very, very crucial, in fact pivotal to a greater understanding of the photograph, and others decide no, they don't particularly want to persuade people to accept or to understand the photograph in any particular manner, and they might well feel that a title would do that. So entirely up to you, and you can say untitled. So there's a lot of breadth in as far as how you want to encourage people to understand your work.
It might be useful, Susan, if you're not sure what your own preference is, look at some people's websites perhaps and see how they display their images, and you'll find a variety from the old experts, like pepper number 1 to pepper number 56 or whatever, numbering like that, very imaginative, to really very important titles that almost make the image, and to untitled, where the artist leaves the viewer to actually completely open to form their own thoughts. Perfect.
Okay. There's a couple of other things which are quite specific to framing. That's one from Pierre and Lorraine about certificate of authenticity, etc. I don't think this is the best place to go into those. What I am going to do, though, we'll just keep a track of these comments, and once we get the CWE February live stream sorted, I'll try to make sure we sweep back through some of those, because I think that's more the minutiae of the exact exhibit thing, which is absolutely fair and valid. But I think at this stage, we're more talking about this is what it is. This is generally how it will work. We'd love you to be involved. And then we'll narrow that funnel down into the actual minutiae of the print types, how you're going to say it, the pricing, all that other good stuff. But I really appreciate everyone putting those questions in. And I really would encourage you to come back to us in February and keep your eye on when this is going to be for this CWE chat, because we'll dive into that in a bit more detail. So what I will do, though, is just finish with a couple of very nice comments. Hi from the frozen east of France. Thanks for this inspiring webinar. Barry's saying, thank you, Charlie, for the opportunity to exhibit and a great learning experience. Susan, thank you so much for sharing your time, knowledge, and the encouragement. I learned so much and gained some self-confidence. That's fantastic to know.
Really.
Karen, thank you for an interesting session. And Barbara, thank you so much. Evening has been really helpful. Pierre, again, you've another good question there about the pricing and the exhibitions and limited number of works. We will get back into that in more detail in the February live stream, okay? Because we're just short of time, I'm afraid, now today. But I will wrap it up because we've run a bit long. Sorry, everybody. But thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Astrid, so much for joining us. I think it's been really useful for people to see and to get inspired by and to understand a bit more. So good night to both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
And I will just leave one final thing out. If you do have any questions, please do email the office, admin or info@lightenland.co.uk, admin@lightenland.co.uk. And we will either pick that up, obviously, with a response, and we will also, like we say, we'll add that to our list generally for the website and or to cover in another live stream. But for now, I am going to go. I'm going to let you all go as well. Do take this seriously. Do get involved. It will be an extremely exciting and inspiring and interesting thing for you to learn about your own photography and see everyone else is taking part as well. So I would really, really encourage you to give it the chance, to give it the time. And if you head to the website, lightenland.co.uk/exhibition, you'll find all the info there. And we'll be back in February. But for now, cheerio. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.